Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next update in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. And I'm really excited to share with you my progress on all of the eyeshadows that I've been working on. But before we jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just start going through the eyeshadows. So as always, I'm gonna go through the eyeshadows in the order of the ones that have been in here the longest. And the first eyeshadow that I have to talk about comes from my Douce palette from Juvia's place. And the shade that I've been working on is Crepes in here. So I'm gonna insert a picture of where I was last time with this shade. So with this shade, I already had a bit of a dip last update. And if you look at the pan now, this is where I am currently. So I was able to hit pan on this eyeshadow, which I kind of expected to do because I could already see that there was quite a bit of a dip in there, like I mentioned. I have only used this an additional 4 times to hit pan on it, and then I did use it today as well. I think I'm wearing all of the eyeshadows on my eyes today. So the uses on this since last update is 5, and it did take me 18 times in total to hit pan on the shade. I did really love working on this palette, and when I did roll out this shade right here, which is Berry Mousse, I did roll this straight away after. So I've had this palette in my rotation for a really long time, and it is a beautiful palette, but I would be quite happy to put this away for now because I do want to work on some other palettes instead. But I am excited to have 2 pans in this palette now, and this shade, it's kind of a nice corally shade. It looks quite like brownish in here, but I feel like it translates much more coral on the eyes. And I'm wearing this on my outer corners today. I do have a lighter corally shade in my actual crease right here, but I do have this kind of in the middle of my crease here on the outer corners, and I do love it. But again, I'm hoping to roll something different to replace that shade. So next palette that I'm talking about is the Lilac You palette from Colourpop, and in here I was working on this shade Zoned Out. So again, I will put up a picture of where I was last time, and this is another palette that has been in here for 2 months, but I am happy to report that this right here is where I am currently. So I do have a baby pan in there, and I was actually able to pan on that today during this eye look. And I'm wearing this Zoned Out shade on my kind of inner crease right there, and it is a beautiful shade. I only used this an additional 8 times over the last month, meaning a total of 16 uses before hitting pan on it, which may not sound that much, especially for being a matte shade, but every time I used this eyeshadow I used a lot of it. And I think today is the least that I've used this shade in any of the looks I included this in, because most of the time I use this as an all over the lid and blend it into my crease, and it's a really nice pastel look like that. I do think I have maybe 1 or 2 looks to show you at the end of this video where I use this shade like that, so you can see what it looks like. But that was my favorite way to use this eyeshadow, and I think that's why I was able to pan on this in so few uses. So the remaining 3 shades that I have in the project were all rolled in last update, and the first one comes from my Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia, and the shade I was working on is Primavera. Again, I'm gonna put up the picture of where I was last time, and as you can see I did have a slight dip going, but I hadn't reached for this shade in a really long time. Since I rolled it in, I have used this 15 times including today, and as you can see, this right here is where I am today. So I was again able to hit pan on it, and I hit pan on this after 14 uses, which I'm not that surprised about because again I did have a bit of a dip in this shadow, as well as the Anastasia pans are quite shallow. So I was kind of expecting to pan on this in 1 month, especially since it is such an easy shade to wear as well. And I wore this a lot on my lids as well as in my inner corners, which is where I am wearing it today. I am really excited to get some more pans in this palette because it is a bit older in my collection. I think I picked this up almost 4 years ago now, so it is getting quite old, but the formula is still really nice and it performs really well still. I was a bit worried about that when I first put it in, but I do have 3 pans in here now, all from this project, so I am very excited that this is starting to look a bit more used. So next palette is one that also have been in here quite a lot, and that is the Magic Mini palette from Juvia's place again. I have worked on 2 shades in this project already. I worked on the shade Vi and then Buso, but the shade that I was working on this month is called Yara, and this right here is what it looks like. When I rolled it in last month, it was basically untouched, but This right here is where I am now, so no pan as of yet, but you can definitely see that there is a dip forming. I have used this shade 7 times in the last month, including today again. This is what I'm wearing kind of on the middle of my lid as that kind of turquoise shade. I do really love this shade, and it's actually one of the favorite ones that I've had in this project from this palette. I'm actually also working on Juvia, which is the gold that I'm wearing on my lids today as well. And I have found that it doesn't take too long to pan on these eyeshadows, but obviously 7 uses isn't enough. But I definitely feel like I will be able to hit pan on this in next update if I am able to reach for these kind of brighter shades still. But I don't think that should be a problem, and I'm hoping that if I use it the same amount of times next month, this will be rolled out. But yeah, I am enjoying this shade. It's just something that I can't really reach for on an everyday basis. And then the very last shade that I had in a rotation last month is a shade from my I Heart Revolution Rose Gold Mini Eyeshadow Palette. And the shade that I had is shade number 5. They don't have any shade names, but it's just this burgundy kind of outer corner shade, and again I am wearing this again to deepen up my outer corners. And with this eyeshadow, it was very unused when I first rolled it in, but this right here is where I am today. So you can see that I hit pan on this shade as well, which means I hit pan on 4 out of my 5 shades, which is so incredible, and I'm very happy about that. This palette, they do have very shallow pans, so again I wasn't too surprised about hitting pan on it, although this shade was a bit more harder pressed than some of the other shades that I have worked on in this palette before. I did reach for this eyeshadow 14 times before hitting pan on it, and then I did reach for an additional 1 time today. So it's a very exciting update today, and I'm actually rolling out 4 of the eyeshadows that I was working on, which means that I'm almost going to get a completely new color palette. I am going to go ahead and swatch out all of the eyeshadows that I have here, the one that is staying in the project as well as the 4 that I've rolled out. So I'm going to go with that, and then I will go ahead and randomize the new shades. So here you have all of the shades. This is a shade that is still staying in the project, and here we have the 4 shades that I'm rolling out. So I currently have 471 eyeshadows in my collection, and I have put that into my randomizer app. So we'll go ahead and randomize 4 new numbers, and we're gonna see what I get. The first one will be number 254. So shade number 254 actually comes from my Magic palette again. I haven't checked which shade it is, but I will go ahead and look at that when I have all of the shades. But the name of it is Nana. The second shade I'm rolling in is number 90. So shade number 90 comes from my It's My Pleasure palette from Colourpop, and this shade is Chiclet. The third shade will be number 432. So number 432 is one of my depotted Colourpop eyeshadows. I think it was from the She palette, and the shade is called Dainty. And then the very last shade that I am rolling in is shade number 52. So shade number 52 I actually already had. I think I rolled that shade out last update, and that is Chic from my Anastasia Sultry palette. So I'm gonna re-roll the last number. And the last number will be number 2. So shade number 2 actually again comes from my Modern Renaissance palette, and the shade is Golden Ochre. So I'll go and collect all of those eyeshadows, and I will be right back to show you what they are. So I'm back, and I have all of the new shades picked out. The first one, like I mentioned, came from the Magic palette. It's funny that I keep rolling these US Place palettes, but I am happy to get some use out of it. And like I said, it's funny because I've also had this palette in already 3 times in this project, and I think back to back, so I keep getting them. But the shade that I rolled in is this transition shade right here, and again called Nana. And there you have a swatch of that shade. I think it's going to be a really nice shade to work on, and I think I will be able to incorporate that into a lot of different looks. And then next up, I can't remember which order I pulled the rest of the shades, but the next shade I'm going to go through is the one from It's My Pleasure. And the shade that I rolled in is Chiclet right here. It's this really dark purple. And it's funny because recently I did my least favorite shades in palette, and I did pick this one as my least favorite shade in this palette, so it might be something that hinders me a bit, but also it might be good to play around with it and see if I can find ways that I enjoy it more. So yeah, Chiclet is this one right here. And there is the swatch of that shade as well. The next shade I have is the shade Dainty from my Colourpop She palette, and I have it in my mini C palette right here, and the eyeshadow is this one right here. So it's, like I said, one of the kind of mini Colourpop shades, and I used to powder them and put some stickers on the back, but this is just a nice kind of rose goldy shade, and I haven't used it too much, but I think this is going to be one that is quite easy to reach for. And there you have that shade from Colourpop. And then the very final shade that I rolled in comes from my Renaissance palette again. It's funny that I said that I'm happy to get some more progress out of this one and I keep rolling shades from this. But the shade that I got is shade number 2, which is Golden Ochre right here. And there you have Golden Ochre swatched out on my hand as well. I think it's going to be a really versatile shade to use, and I feel like I can use that with a lot of different looks. Although it is a bit more warm toned, it's definitely more neutral than, for example, Nana right here. So I feel like quite a good spread of shades here on my hand. So those were all of the shades that I'm going to work on now for the next month. And as always, before I close off this video, I just want to go through some of the looks that I have been wearing over the last month. So I'm going to scooch over to the side and show you the pictures. So the first look that I have right here is just like a neutral look that I did different variations of over the last month. And in here I'm wearing the shade from the Douce palette, I think Crepes it was. I'm also wearing that deep shade in the I Heart Revolution Rose Gold palette, just in my other corners to deepen it up. And then I have paired it with Primavera on my eyelids, which is that golden shade that you're seeing. So this is the look that I did, like I said, different variations of, but it was an easy way for me to incorporate quite a few of the eyeshadows that I was panning. The next one is quite similar to the previous one, but I just kind of amped it up a bit. So I'm again wearing the same shade from the Juvia's Place Douce palette, and also the I Heart Revolution Rose Gold eyeshadow palette in my outer corner again. But then instead of placing the Primavera shade on my lids, I actually paired it with a different shade from the Magic palette, which is that golden shade that I'm panning, which I'm also wearing on my eyes today. So I paired that on my kind of main lid, and then I topped the inner part of my lid as well as my inner corner with Primavera again. And this again was just another way of me to use a lot of the shades that I'm panning, but with this look I just wanted to amp it up a little bit. Next up we have one of the looks where I was using that shade from the Lilac You palette. So I put Zoned Out all over my crease as well as my lid, and then I put Primavera on top of the inner half of my lids as well as a glitter that I had in my shop stash last month. So that is the first look where I'm wearing that shade. And next up we have another look that I wore, again wearing Zoned Out. I have that in my crease, and then I have another shade from the Lilac You palette kind of in my outer corners just to kind of create that deeper purple that you can see. And then I did pair it with the same kind of golden yellow from the Magic palette, and I have Primavera again on my inner corners. The next look again is very similar. I'm wearing the same shades in my crease, the Crepe shade from the Douce palette, the dark burgundy shade from the Rose Gold mini palette, but then what I did is I actually paired the turquoise shades that I still have in here from the Magic palette on the middle of my lid, and then I topped that off with Primavera in my inner corners. I have 2 more looks to go. The next look is one of my absolute favorite looks that I did. I actually used the Just My Luck palette mainly, but then I did pair it with the turquoise shade again from the Magic palette on the middle of my lid, and I absolutely loved how this turned out. It's one of my favorite looks that I've done in a really long time. And then lastly we have a look that I actually did this weekend. I was away for like a mini festival thing with some friends. It wasn't like an actual festival thing, it was just at their house, but I did still want to kind of dress up with my makeup, so I did actually apply some glitter as you can see, but my main eye look was again wearing Zoned Out on my lids, and then I just put some glitter in my inner corner again just to make that a bit more festival-y. So those you guys were all of the looks that I wore in the last month. I was definitely better again with taking pictures compared to last month. But if you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know how you're doing with your projects, if you're doing project pans as well. Otherwise, I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!